be easier to have a control. Yes, yeah, will be in Serbian English, because the journalists are there. I will speak Serbian because of media, and you speak, of course, English. Da proverimo, jeste. Najpre želim da se zahvalim svima koji ste došli. Mislim da je ovo jedna retka prilika da imamo ovako kvalifikovanog i politički i akademski gosta. A vi znate da je glavni cilj diplomatskog dijaloga neka vrsta briefinga. Ne zauzimanja pozicija, ali naravno briefovanje o podacima, a i o pozicijama. To ne znači da naši govornici treba po svaku cenu da zanemare i svoj politički stav. U ovom slučaju ja moram da kažem da je jedan od motiva da Rudina Hajdari, članica parlamenta Albanije, bude gošća našeg briefinga i taj što njima jedan jasan politički stav i viziju koja, ja mislim, može biti korisna i nama u Srbiji, a Boga mi i vama Perkoviću u Bosni i Hercegovini, a pogotovo u Crnoj Gori, jer nekako imamo slične probleme. Imamo slične probleme, oni nisu identični, ali mi imamo takozvanu pobunu opozicije sa manje ili više stabilnim ili nestabilnim vladama, ali vrlo popularnim vođama. Tako da je zaista problem, mi to barem u Srbiji znamo, Jugoslaviji iz doba Miloševića, kako izaći, odnosno kako ne ući u situaciju u kojoj je Srbija bila s Miloševićem. I kako iz nje izaći, a da to ne bude simulacija neke demokratske revolucije. Dakle, Rudina Hajdari je, od njoj ste dobili sve podatke, CV je priložen. Ja bih samo rekao jednu tačku vezanu za ovaj neki naš širi motiv zašto baš tema Albanije i kako mi iz foruma i ja lično vidimo tu temu i zašto je nama jako važno da imamo informacije o događajima u Albaniji. Dakle, prvo, informacije koje naši mediji daju nisu sistematske, nije to široko praćenje cele slike u Albaniji, uglavnom se javnost izveštava o, što je naravno najatraktivnije za medije, o uličnim demonstracijama, o maltene početku nekakvog haosa, a onim drugim segmentima i političkog i drugog života imamo jako malo informacija. Drugo, cela percepcija premijera Albanije Edi Rame ovde je građena na jednom pozitivnom iskustvu koji ima naša vlast u komunikaciji sa Edi Ramom i njegovoj uključenosti u proces i regionalne saradnje, a i rešavanja kosovsko-albanskih odnosa, kosovsko-srpskih odnosa. Međutim, ta percepcija je samo deo aktivnosti Edi Rame i očigledno ta percepcija ne odgovara do kraja onome što mi posle čujemo da je percepcija opozicije. Dakle, ideja je da doprinesemo da se stvori jedna objektivnija slika i sam kraj, znate, ovde mi vrlo lako govorimo o pomirenju. Mi lako govorimo o nečemu što je jako teško dostići. Ali zaista kad gledate promenjenu geopolitičku mapu Zapadnog Balkana, jer to sad zove Zapadni Balkan, ili ja to da prevedem, Jugoslavija minus Slovenija, ex-Jugoslavija minus Slovenija plus Albanija, dakle, to je jedna potpuno nova konfiguracija. u kojoj narodi moraju da sarađuju i u kojoj je vrlo racionalno govoriti i želeti srpsko-albansku saradnju. Ali je problem kako da ta saradnja ne isključuje druge. I kako da se ta saradnja postigne u momentu kad postoje neki prioriteti. I sad to je kraj ovoga što ja želim da kažem. Upravo u nameri da ne opterećujemo našu gošću pitanjem Srbije i Kosova, ali nama, kao i odnosima Srbije i Kosova i sa Albanijom, predstoji jedan proces normalizacije odnosa. A to nas čeka i sa Makedonijom, i s Crnom Gorom, Bosnom i Hercegovinom i Hrvatskom. A sa Albanijom je to lakše postići, jer nije bilo neposrednih konfrontacija. Nema neposredno nerešenih graničnih pitanja. Dakle, put do toga što mi želimo, pomirenje naroda, saradnja ljudi, sloboda kretanja, ipak vodi prvi korak normalizacija i tu je prioritet Kosovo-Srbija, ali je jako dobro normalizovati odnose sa širim okruženjem, pogotovo važnim igračem kakva je Tirana, a tek neki drugi korek kome treba narod sada težiti jeste i ovo pomirenje društava. Dakle, uveren da će izlaganje naše gošće i vaša debata sa njom pomoći ostvarivanju ovih naših namera. Ja sad dajem reč Rudini Hajdari.
Well, hello everyone. Hello all distinguished guests. I know, hello Mr. Ambassador, and many diplomats I know are here. I've met some of you and I've had the pleasure to speak a bit briefly, but I'm really honored to be invited by Mr. Janjic in this forum that I hope I live up to the expectations. It's not... let me just take this off. Yeah. I hope I live up to your expectations. And before I begin my presentation, I think I have to say that I welcome all your questions, and I will try and do my best to answer them as best as possible. Albania, I play in a very unique role in Albania at the moment, but I think before speaking about what I'm doing, I think it's maybe important to put into context what's going on in Albania at the moment. And as Mr. Janjic put in perspective very well, is that sometimes outside of Albania, other countries in the region, but even abroad, only know one side of the story and they do not know the other side of the story. So I'm going to try and fill in that picture as much as I can and give you my perspective of what's going on. And I have to say this out loud, not many people agree with my position. So it's up to you to criticize it, to question it, and to elaborate more on what we can do together to find something or find some shared experiences and similarities that we can maybe have some better relations between Albania and Albanians in Albania and in Serbia. And I have maybe to share just a little story about the facts in the last 2 days that I have come to Serbia. This is my second time visiting Belgrade, and I have lived in the United States for about 17 years, and I went to UK. I've always visited these Western countries. And what I realized coming to Serbia and Belgrade for the second time is that I'm getting to know myself a bit more. And what I mean by that is that I cannot fully know my identity without also knowing Serbia. The reason why that is because we share more culture than we think we do. And we forget that. We usually focus on the different historical narratives that we have, instead of focusing on the fact that we both have shared a very difficult history. And in that difficult history, both our countries and in the region want to move forward and see the European integration and Euro-Atlanticism as the only option for our people and for our country to prosper in the future. So I think beginning by that and having that in mind, I think it's a positive story to tell, especially coming from a younger generation that wants to see progress and not much focus on what has happened in the past. Although the past is very important to know in order to move forward, and we never must forget that. However, Albania has always been stuck into this vicious cycle of internal politics. Our politics have been defined post-communism by a very polarized political parties. Basically, in the last 20, 30 years, we've only had 3 dominating parties, which is the Democratic Party, which has been defined as the anti-communist party that came about after the 90s with a student movement that was able to overthrow the communist regime. And in that movement, I'm proud to say that my father was one of the leaders of that movement, and that has been the cornerstone or the main source of my strength and my desire to come back to Albania and be in the political scene. However, we have on the other side the SP, which has been defined as this repackaged party after the communist regime, and they have repackaged their model, they have changed the people that have been involved, but there's still many things about the fact that we do not feel as Albanians that we have reached a reconciliation process post-communism. So all the atrocities that have happened within Albania during the 50 years dictatorship, there's never been a sincere attempt by both parties to reach a reconciliation, because many of those former people that have been involved are still part of the political scene, are still part of the political elite. So this is very sad to see that even after 30 years, we still feel as a country that we haven't moved forward. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it's, I think, one of the main political debates amongst both parties. They say that, no, you are part of the communist regime, no, you are part of the communist regime, and they blame each other when it comes to this topic. And this has been always a weapon to use amongst each other in order to prove who has the high moral ground to rule the country. And I think this is a very unfair debate, because instead we should be focusing on having platforms that are constructive for the country and that deal with social-based issues. That Albania is still a very poor country, one of the poorest in Europe, I might say, and we are facing almost the same problems as you are facing. We have lots of immigrants, lots of young people that want to leave Albania, and it has been particularly sad since 2013. We are counting almost over 300,000 Albanians leaving Albania and going to Western Europe. So this is, I know this is very common also in the region. Right now, what we are looking at is another crisis that it's not just based, that's fighting this reality, but there's another reality appearing, which is mainly attacked or mainly focused with the Rama government. What we have seen recently is Albania becoming this very, as it's been called, the narco state country. And the reason why this has been a problem is because the government repeatedly has denied the fact that this has been going on since 2013. There was a big cannabis cultivation. This was even before the Rama government. This was even before, even during the Berisha government, which, the infamous Lazarat town, which produced a lot of cannabis, and then this cannabis was somehow controlled. And when the Rama government won in 2013, they particularly used this ticket to say that we are going to fight this town that seems to be working above the government and doing everything possible to control the government. So they came in with that ticket. They did a parade, a propaganda parade, saying that we have destroyed everything with helicopters, and it looked very good on international media. But in very few after that, we saw that Albania was fast growing, turning into the biggest country growing cannabis. So particularly this is important because right now we do not see this reality, and I can speak here a bit more freely, I think, about the internal challenges that we have, especially with the Rama government that seems to package himself as this new artist, basketball, innovative person that sells very well to the internationals. But what's going on in Albania particularly is very worrying, because this cannot happen without collaborating with other countries within the region for this big criminal network to work. So we need to look, although it's a hard reality to think about, we need to look at this harsh reality and we need to fight it together. And this is something that the opposition needs to maybe investigate very thoroughly and see why this has been so successful, why these drugs are reaching the Netherlands, the UK, and maybe it's a small amount compared to maybe where they're coming from other regions, from other countries that are more of a security dangerous threat to Europe. And Europe has a big market for drugs. And so maybe it's some of their internal issues they have to deal with as well. But what we have to look at is how much are these criminals connected to the government? How much are they facilitating together to create this traffic route that's not only for drugs, but also for human trafficking and other dangerous trafficking that are going into Europe and are creating basically a very negative image of Albania, and it's really impeding the opening of the negotiation process. On the other hand, I have to also admit that we are also going through some very positive reforms. And about May 29th, the High Representative of EU, Federica Mogherini, she clearly said that Albania has been doing some really positive steps, and we have done some positive steps. We cannot forget that we are a country that have been in NATO for 10 years, so this is a very positive development for Albania. We've been EU visa-free country since 2010. These are all positive developments for Albania, but since maybe during 2009, 2000, we haven't really seen any progress in Albania or any change that can be sold as successive stories. We need to we're also going through a very difficult process, which is the judicial reform. Judicial reform has been one of the most successful stories in Albania, as it's very unique in the region and also in Europe, particularly. The judges and prosecutors and the whole justice system is going through a very excruciating vetting process, and it has been successful because almost 50% or more of the 800 judges, only 110 of them have been tried right now, and more than 50 of them have been taken out. The drawback to that is that we are going through a difficult process because we don't have a constitutional court, a high appeals court, and this is, of course, very difficult because the governments are using the situation to exploit their powers. So right now we have a president that doesn't have a constitution court in order to see where his boundaries are and see what his role is in order to play a constructive role when it comes to the political crisis that's been going on right now. We have a very volatile crisis at the moment. The opposition is asking Rama government to resign, and they have burned their mandates. This is a very unique situation. We've never heard of something like this before. And the fact that they have done that means in a way that they have kind of I've called it a suicide in the democratic process, because if you want things to change, if you want the government to change, you need to do it. Of course, protests need to happen, and people can go out in the streets, and the opposition can be part of these protests, but it cannot be in the forefront of the protest, because it's not a civil protest. It's a protest organized by political leaders. They want to come into power. So people look at these protests more as a battle between political parties of who is better, how are they going to strike a deal in order to put pressure on each other, so who's going to be next in power. So I do not see the Democratic Party's decision as a very constructive decision. I think right now we are looking at a very polarized situation where the opposition is not in parliament. I'm one of those MPs of the opposition that remained in parliament, and of course this is not very good for the Democratic Party, because they have expelled me from the Democratic for having this decision, for making this decision. But at the same time, I think that the whole international community is condemning the situation, because they're very fearful that this will create a situation, an unprecedented situation in the region. So what do? We are in a very, very difficult situation. What does the opposition do? How does the opposition make themselves a factor? How does an opposition go against a government that has been accused for having these criminal drug links that have become very powerful politically, have become very powerful economically, and do not leave any room for the opposition to have a fair role in the society? What do you do in these situations? It's a very hard question to answer, but I think ultimately it's up to the people. It's up to the people to choose and to vote. And what we can do is use constructive ways. We need to remain in parliament. We need to work and convince our people that we have an alternative. And this is what I am trying. This is where I come in as a young politician that has not been in the communist era, and the communist era has passed 30 years ago. We have been in a transition for 30 years, and I've only seen the same political leaders change their high position roles in the last 30 years. They're prime ministers, and then they become presidents, and then they become foreign ministers, and then a rotation goes in, and nothing really changes. And what I'm really calling for is a change of the political class, a change of the people that say that they want to give Albanian prosperity, and they want to integrate Albania into European integration, but they are the same people that are blocking this integration. So we have really lost trust in them, and we need to look forward as a young population to find ways that we can defeat. It's not a very easy goal, but some of these politicians need to realize that they need to step aside and let the younger generation to move in. It's a very difficult fight, but I think that we will succeed if we have a very good cooperation even with the region. I think there's many constructive opposition movements going on in the region. If we work together to find new ideas about what we envision the region to be like, what we need, what we want for our younger population, how do we see ourselves in the next 10 or 15 years, I think this can be a new movement that can really move the region forward. I will end here, and I really apologize for the really long monologue, but I really welcome your questions, and we can have a more interactive discussion on this topic.
Okay. Okay, now the floor is yours. Questions, comments. Dakle, pozivam vas da postavite pitanja, komentare i da idemo dalje. Izvolite. Samo moment. Mila, kakva je tehnika sa mikrofonom? Microphone is there. Okay. Who is the boss? Okay. Please take the microphone.
Htio sam samo da vas pitam kakva je uloga predsjednika i oko najavljivanja izbornih mogućnosti, da ili ne, pošto je u potpuno suprotnom stavu odnosno na diramu što se tiče izbora.
The president recently has announced that he will, I don't know why
It's working. Okay, check. Yeah,
it's working. Okay. The president, the Albanian president, has recently announced that he will cancel the local elections coming up in the 30th of June. This is seen as something that goes out of his competence. It's unprecedented for a president to, as far as I remember, this hasn't happened. Maybe someone in the room that knows about the Albanian history better than I do. But as far as I've checked and I've seen that the Albanian president has never canceled. They have postponed, but they've never canceled their own decree of announcing the elections on, he was actually, it was between two dates about, I think, before, I believe in April or end of March, that it was decided that the election were going to take place in June 30th. Given the volatile situation that has been going on in Albania, the opposition so far has done almost 7 or 8 protests. And they've been very violent. They have destroyed institutions. There have been many civilians and police injured. But there is also a big skepticism on this, because I do not see it as something that it's a movement that somehow I have to be a bit a skeptic here and a cynic, because all of this movement is usually done for the internationals to actually see what's going on in Albania. It's not really done for the population there. They're somehow trying to have this battle amongst each other, the SP and the DP, who has more right into their arguments. So the DP accuses the SP government for actually using criminal networks to sabotage or to win more votes in the 2017 elections. And recently we've had some tapes actually that released this wiretapping between the mayor of one of the towns speaking to criminals to say that they have been buying votes in the last general election. And then, of course, this is a very heavy accusation. It's a very heavy, in a normal circumstance, in any Western country, this would make a huge scandal and would probably lead the prime minister to resign. In Albania, it's a different story, right? And in many countries, it's a different story in the Balkan regions, because there's what it's called a judicial process, and right now, if something is still being looked at by the prosecutors, and you need, in the end of the day, to have a decision that says this person has been responsible for buying votes or for doing, being connected to criminal networks, but nothing has been done by the side of the government. So of course this is very legitimate concern for the opposition to be fighting and to be on the streets to fight for this. But is this the full picture of actually what's going on in Albania? I mean, does this mean that the other elections haven't been rigged? Do we have other recordings? I mean, we're talking about a full investigation that has over 700 CDs. And we don't know who's in there, who has spoken in there. But right now, it's only the SP that has come out. If you look at the ODIHR recommendation of the last election, they have said that the elections are legitimate. But there have been some concerns about what's going on, what the incidents. And one of the parties that have been extremely accused of, and has actually been cited in the ODIHR recommendation, is the LSI, or the president used to be the chairman of this party before, and now his wife is running it. So there is some skepticism about the fact, how is PD fighting with LSI about vote buying while LSE has been accused of vote buying so far. So that was one of my arguments, at least, when I decided not to join the PD to fight against this issue about free and fair and local election when they're aligning with the party that's actually been accused of being involved in this scandal. Again, probably it's not fair, because so far we haven't put anyone in jail for that, and we need to do. If we're going to look at the next elections, right now we have in place what it's called the Committee on Election Reform, and we're looking about implementing the OSCE recommendation about looking at having a new political party law that deals with political party financing, because I think all those are sources, very good sources to look at how we can prevent vote buying. And of course, it's a very important phenomenon. We need to look at it, but we cannot just be on the streets throwing Molotovs and destroying institutions and hurting our citizens to fight about a right that needs to, the only way you can fix it is through institutional work and through engagement of dialogue and sitting together. No one wants to sit in a table to fix these issues. So what's the solution here? And so the president has looked at the situation and said, well, we're facing another civil unrest, we're facing a destabilization of Albania, but who's to say that the president's decision to do that hasn't made Albanians even more insecure or of what's going to happen? There is this constant suspension of what's going to happen next, and the people are not informed, and people do not know what's going to happen. The Democratic Party wants to paint a very authoritarian government, and the government wants to paint a chaotic opposition that is very desperate and is doing anything possible to win, and therefore they're destroying everything possible because they are not able to win. They're a weak opposition. So this is not helpful at all. It's not helpful for Albania. It's not helpful for the U.S. session because it's only 5 individuals that are causing all of this, in my opinion. So that's my answer. I hope.
Okay. Okay, Zoran Milivojević.
The next question.
Dobar dan. Gospođo Hajdari, hvala na iscrpnom izlaganju. Evo, prosto čitam vest od pre pola sata. Kaže, vladajuća stranka pokreće impeachment protiv predsjednika Mete. Čitam vest, vas pitam kakav ishod očekujete. Predsjedništvo vladajuće Albanske socijalističke partije odlučilo je da pokrene postupak za smjenjivanje predsjednika zbog ovog o čemu ste govorili i u četvrtak počinje ta debata u parlamentu. Kakav ishod očekujete? Hvala.
Yes, I think it's a difficult time, and I've been in Serbia. I haven't really been able to follow everything step by step. I know that they're talking, I know about the impeachment of the president, but I think we need to look carefully about how that is done, because right now we don't have a full parliament. We have 122 MPs out of 140. And given in a situation where we don't have a constitutional court, our constitution says that the parliament has a right to impeach the president, but then, because of something wrong that he did, but then it's up to the constitutional court to make that final decision. So I do not see how the parliament can play a role in impeaching the president at the moment. However, I do see a president that maybe wants to give up himself. I can definitely see that as an option to create even more further division, and maybe his party has been accused of not doing very well, and he sees, he's been a very important political figure in Albania, and he's very effective when it comes to gaining momentum and doing what it's more profitable for his party. I do not see him very separated by the LSI. I mean, I see that almost impossible that his wife is still running the party and he's the president of Albania at the same time. It doesn't make sense for many, I think, internationals as well. When they have a meeting with him, they just do not see things as separate. He's been accused several times for aligning with the opposition rather than the government. There's a clear tension between the two. There's been repetitive confrontation between the prime minister and the president. And the president's role, according to our constitution, is to unite both parties. And so, but as far as the parliament's role, I think the parliament has a very limited role in terms of impeaching the president. But if this is a way for the president to self-exclude himself, that's something else that I cannot really speak about because it's part of his plan and not the parliament.
Sljedeći je VD, ambasador Bosne i Hercegovine, Zoran Perković.
Gospođo Hajdari, poštovanje, ja ću svojim pitanjem pokušati da vas malo odmaknem od ove dnevno-političke situacije u vašoj zemlji. Dakle, u nastupima najviših kosovskih dužnosnika Albanaca, a nekoliko puta, više puta je optirana ideja ujedinjenja Kosova sa Albanijom. Nešto što se ovdje definira u toj varijanti kao Velika Albanija. Interesira me kakvo je raspoloženje, odnosno kakav je stav dvije vladajuće partije, dvije najjače partije u Albaniji, Demokratske partije i Socijalističke partije Albanije vezano za to pitanje i kako je inače raspoloženje po vašem mišljenju u albanskom društvu vezano za tu ideju ujedinjenja Albanije i Kosova, obzirom da na te, koliko sam ja pratio, da na ta javna promišljanja kosovskih dužnosnika uglavnom je se odgovaralo šutnjom sa albanske strane, sa strane političara Albanije. Evo, mislim da je pitanje više nego jasno. Hvala.
Well, I think we have spent far too much time talking about this story, about this narrative of Greater Albania, or one side saying that they're seeking Greater Albania. Of course, it's a nostalgic thing. We are stuck with this idea of nostalgia, and the fact that we see that as an attempt by certain politicians to use this nationalist card to appease the population in Albania, and vice versa, and I think in Serbia as well. I think in Albania's side there's this narrative that we fear about Greater Serbia. So I think these narratives have been far way too damaging, and we have focused way too much on them, and they have really not been productive. Albania respects Kosovo and its sovereignty and its constitution, and we have been trying to work as much as we can so they can be recognized by countries and international organizations. I think that as far as your question, I think as I said, there have been some dangerous comments made, even by the Prime Minister when it came to. I remember he held a speech in the Kosovo Parliament, and he said something that he saw maybe a united president that can have that Albania and Kosovo can both join in the future, and this was something that really appeased to Kosovo and Kosovo Albanians. And sometimes these are promises that should not be made so lightly, especially if Kosovo and Serbia are going through a negotiation process. What we are both countries, even Albania, we have to look and focus on our European path and our European integration. That eventually will make borders less significant, and you can have a free movement of every individual to choose where they want to live and how they want to live and which government they want to be part of. So I think we have focused too much on this historical narratives of ethnical divisions, of clear ethnical lines, while the world is actually moving towards something else and has been moving for a long time. And I think we can be a much more productive region, and we can be an added value to the European Union because we're such a young population with such a dynamic and diverse region that we can bring so much to the values and to the innovation of even this creation of new Europe. What I see in the European Union right now is the founding members of the EU are actually shaking the grounds of the European Union project, and it's actually the Balkan region that actually wants to save that future. And if we have the Balkans join the European Union, I think we're going to have a more united European Union.
Professor Stevan Lilić.
Professor Stevan Lilić. Professor.
Hi, my name is Stefan Lilić.
Stevan Lilić.
A lot like you, I'm a university professor and also was a member of parliament. In the early 2000s, we visited, a delegation of the Serbian parliament visited the parliament of Albania in Tirana. And among other things, the issue of Kosovo was brought up then. And there seemed to be, it was my impression, a very, very good atmosphere regarding contacts between Belgrade and Tirana on the issue of Kosovo, okay? Now my question and my comment, what I'd like you to comment on, as I see you are in depth in these political issues in Albania, is there any motivation for Albania to be included into the Belgrade and Pristina talks, particularly in some kind of proactive, positive direction, in your opinion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, are you asking for my personal opinion, or are you asking for the government's role right now in the Kosovo-Serbian?
Well, if I have a choice, I'll ask for your personal opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Albania can play a very, very important role when it comes to Kosovo-Serbia relations, because I think Albania and Serbia share a much better relations amongst each other. And they have worked, especially in the last, we have interactive visits among each country, we see an increased tourism, we see a much engaged governments between Albania and Serbia. But at the same time, I think we also need to respect Kosovo sovereignty and Kosovo's decision of how they want to reach their deal and how they want to deal with Serbia and how they want to see what's their best solution for them in getting what they call the best possible deal for Kosovo. And Kosovo really wants to be recognized as independent, wants to be part of the UN, wants to be part of the European Union, and sees Serbia as someone that's stopping Kosovo from doing that. And on the other side, Serbia feels that this is unfair because they feel that Kosovo is, according to the Serbian constitution, Kosovo is still part of, the territory is still part of Serbia. And although they control the territory is predominant by Albanians, Kosovars, they still feel that many of it is part of the Serbian government, the Serbian territory. But what steps have been made forward, what we have seen since 2013 with the EU normalization agreement between when it was started with Catherine Ashton, I think what we've seen is that some of these small agreements made steps forward, and we see Serbia getting pushed into the direction and seeing that Kosovo has been recognized as undeniably a country that's going to become independent. But they do not see that what they see, in my opinion, is that they have been treated unfairly by the international community, that they're being forced into into recognizing Kosovo without getting anything in return. And by that, I think Serbia needs to be clear what they want in the return. What is this that they want from Kosovo? Is this border swaps? Is this territorial border correction? Some of these dialogues have not been very transparent, and Albania, as far as the Albanian population is, we don't know what's going on with those negotiation talks. We don't really know what Vučić is asking right now. The only thing that we know is that we want this dialogue to start and then to continue and then to be reached, because we see it as causing an instability in the Balkans. And if we can solve this issue, I think that we are going to look at more stable and more secure Balkans that can finally move forward and hopefully have a future in the European Union.
It's working.
Yes.
In English.
I can still hear you
Yes, but we need the mic.
for the camera.
Okay.
We need the translation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stella, you could ask in English.
Yes, well, that's what I
It's
said.
majority here.
Yeah, I think it was-
You come here.
Well, if I may continue, I had nothing to do with this interference. Actually, my question was not being biased. I just asked because at that time there was, how should I say, a good atmosphere that communication between Belgrade and Tirana could contribute to the Kosovo issue. So my question actually is do you think there is any any positive effect if Tirana would be some kind of intermediary in these communications, not taking a side, because basically you have a factor in Kosovo, you have a factor that connects to Albania, an ethnic factor, and also an ethnic factor that connects to Serbia. So in my opinion, it's very logical, because this is an area that's in there. So far, I have never registered any kind of activity from the Albanian side. This is not criticism, it's just description from Albania as such regarding the issue of Kosovo. Maybe the issue of regional stability, etc., but nothing of Kosovo. Maybe my question is wrong. I'm just wondering, would this be a positive contribution or not? Is it something that maybe would help stabilize Albania as well as stabilize Serbia? Not protecting the interests of Kosovo, let them do it themselves, okay? But sort of being an intermediary.
I think I see your question more as a suggestion rather than a question. And I agree with your suggestion. I think the Albania can play a key role in the region, and not just in the Kosovo-Serbian relation, but just in general in the region as a stabilizing factor. I think Albania has a really good relation with Serbia and also with Turkey and other regional countries that can play a very stabilizing factor amongst these ethnically divided nations. And I think Albania is seen as a very tolerant country as well. But at the same time, Albania, in this situation right now, can be very biased. And they have seen, if you look at what the government, in order to be a very good facilitating intermediate factor in this negotiation process, you cannot be biased. You cannot be backing one side rather than the other. So that's why sometimes maybe this is seen as not constructive. And if Albania is going to take the Kosovo side more over than the Serbian side, maybe that's not seen as something that's going to be constructive. So you need to be guaranteeing that Albania is playing a very neutral role when it comes to the negotiation and finding a solution here. But it's very hard considering what we spoke about, that national historical narrative that we are talking about. And there's a very big difference, a huge difference between the Serbian narrative and the Albanian narrative when it comes to whose fault is whose and who's done what. And so it's very difficult to even explain that to the public. And sometimes these steps are not taken because they're maybe not popular amongst their own electorate. So some leaders find themselves into that trap where they're appeasing more to their electorate rather than trying to find a long-lasting peace solution.
Thank you. Please, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Dusan.
Just a second.
Thank you, Mr. Janic, for this opportunity. I'm really delighted to be today here and to hear Ms. Hajdari speaking about Albania and about his projects and changing the ideas with this very special occasion. And I'm not going to details and to enter and to give answer to his declaration on his views as a member of the parliament, from the opposition. I'm not defending the government in this moment because it's you have made it very. But I would like to congratulate her for this very courage he has shown during these months in Albania, especially in the political life in the parliament of Albania, when she has a special attitude, very democratic, may I say, towards the majority of his own party. He has shown a great act of courage, going out of this group, or this parliamentary group, in the moment that she didn't agree to go out of the parliament's life. This was a great moment of courage, and I appreciate this moment. She has told today many arguments on this position, and I can say that he was under enormous pressure not to do this act. But I'm thinking that it was a great accomplishment in this moment, and maybe this will be in her career one of the most special moments, and that will be as a point that the new generation of politicians should take as example, to think with his own brain, and to think and to react on the interest of the people who has sent this new politician in the parliament. We have, I was following this, I'm not making any question, but I must say that one of the most important things that Ms. Hajdari stressed was the judiciary reform. This is one of the focal points that you can understand very well the situation in Albania. There are forces that are in favor, there are forces that are against. And around this issue, it's also many things that are happening now in Albania. Also, it's this story of boycotting the parliament, the story of being against the election, also the last declaration from the president. This is everything. It's around this story. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Your comment, but I will just use this opportunity that you opened one question to ask
Yes.
Rudina, okay, it's not the time to say what she is going to deal with her political capacity. But my question is how she's seen this proper role in the next coming, I suppose, really complicated and terrible moments in the political life. Yes. Because we could see there are a lot of signs of, how to say, deepening and escalating the political life. And without de-escalation, it's really hard to achieve the momentum to change the existing government toward elections. Meaning, as my question is, what is the main idea of Rudina Hajdari and people following her, because she's not alone, you said right? How to recognize the momentum in which they have to take, not the side of the sides in the fight, but to take the side of the democratization. That's that. I'm not asking about the narco state, because there was a lot to write about that in the media here. I'm just only asking what she is going to do with her proper, I would say, political capital. Also, because Liliana wanted from you press, she wanted to ask something, maybe to collect the questions.
Yes.
And to use the next, how to say, speech for closing this kind of the formal discussion, and after that to start with the working groups outside of the room. Liliana, izvoli.
Dobar dan. Čujem se, pretpostavljam. Kao novinar koji prati region, znači jug Srbije, Kosovo i prilično severozapadnu Makedoniju, praktično područje koje je postkonfliktno, a sticajem okolnosti boravio u Albaniji skoro i razgovarao sa mladim ljudima. Mene prosto zanima vaše mišljenje koliko je Tirana zapravo, kolika je njena moć i uticaj na Prištinu, jer činjenica je da je, čini mi se, bar ja to tako čitam, kada je pre nekoliko godina dolazio premijer Albanije Edi Rama i posetio i Preševo, čini mi se da je on u tom trenutku želeo da govori u ime svih Albanaca. Nisam sigurna da bi lideri u Prištini to prihvatili. Dakle, kako je vaše mišljenje, koliki je suštinski uticaj Tirane na Prištinu i koliko bi Tirana mogla da utiče na bilo kakve stavove političara u Prištini, pa i stavove u dijalogu sa Srbijom?
I will start with your question first, and then I will end with Mr. Janic's question about the future and my plans. Well, Mr. Rama's visit in Preševa, I think it was the first time when he was in the opposition himself. And I think I see these as very desperate moves to become popular. I think they're just looking for more purpose on what to do and how to become more known to the region and how to appeal to a wider public. And I think for me, I don't think it's effective. I think it's a desperate move of a desperate man that's trying to get in power and then trying to use every possible route to get there. And I haven't seen Rama going back there to visit. I haven't seen anything attempt of Rama trying to do. I've actually just met with some in Belgrade, some young people from Preševa, and I've said the same thing exactly. He just came to promote a book and then said that he would deliver so much, and we haven't seen him ever since. So honestly, I do not, I mean, these are Balkan politicians, these are Balkan men. They want to show that they have authority, they want to show that they have power, they want to show that they want to be in history books, they want to be the ones that the next Skanderbeg, or they're always creating these stories in their head that they're going to be the next leaders of the Balkans. And I think they're so much caught up in that image that they actually don't do anything for the people. So I think it's just, unfortunately, this is maybe an ironic comment, but I think it shows a lot about the tendencies of the Balkan leaders to be very authoritarian, very charismatic, very promising to their own people, and engaging with older history and what they will bring to the Albanians in different regions. And yet, when it comes to when they meet with the Germans and the French, and they are very quiet, and they stay very quiet, and they don't talk about those things. So that's why I say they play double standards, and they're caught in between having it good with US, Germany, and the Europeans, and then at the same time they want to be this very popular politician in the region. So those realities for me clash, because you cannot be a popular nationalist leader and also be someone that wants to join the European Union, although we see a trend now in the European Union, which that's something very scary for the future. Yes, and I just want to conclude, I guess, and take this time to conclude my discussion, and I just want to give an answer of what my plans are, and also just really want to thank the Albanian ambassador here, Mr. Bochka. He's a long-time career ambassador that we are very proud to have, and has done an amazing job as an ambassador. So thank you for your comments, and thank you for spending your long-time career to work for Albania and to give us such a great, incredible image. As far as me, I think that I'm in a very difficult position because I did not choose a decision where I could be in the Democratic Party or in that closed list. We have a closed list system, on that list, in the next list, to have a secure seat. And the only way, a lot of people criticized me and said, well, you knew it's a closed list system, then why did you get on the list? Why did you, if you are not, you don't agree with the current system, a closed list system, then why did you get on that list? And my answer is this: I cannot change the system if I'm not in the system. And so I did everything I could to get inside, and now I want to change things. And what I mean by changing things, I mean that I want to be able to create space for young, and when I say young, not all young people are meant to be in politics. I know that. You need to have experience, and you need to have continuity in politics. You need to have the right equipment, you need to have the skills for it as well. You cannot just be young, and sometimes young politicians can damage politics as well with their extremist, idealistic ideas. But I think what we need to have, that we have been missing in Albania, is independent voices, or spaces where Albanians feel more represented in parliament. We do not have that space in parliament right now. We are only just a vote to our party. We cannot really actually contribute to a discussion, to a fair discussion. We're supposed to do what our political leaders tell us to do, because otherwise you risk not being on that list the next time around. So the reason, my first challenge will be perhaps looking at creating a movement around the generation under 40 who have not been in the communist regime, and seeing what they want to see a change, how much they want to be represented in the government, in parliament. And the second thing is changing the electoral system, so working with the OSCE, working with the civil society, working with other political movements that want to see this change happening, and really looking at reaching out to the locals and visiting every side of Albania and getting to know them. Because one of the things that I'm very accused of is that I've been away for a very long time and I don't know what happens in Albania. But my response to that is always, do you actually feel more represented with the person that's actually been in Albania in that parliament for 30 years? I'm guessing not, because your reality hasn't really changed much. You're still in this village, probably worse than you were. So why do you think why would you trust that person more than me? Because I came from, I haven't lived here. And I really tried to visit those areas, because I think that people want to be reached, and people want to have a voice, and people want that grassroots politics going on. So if I can achieve these three things in the next 2 years, I think we will have a lot of success into having a credible alternative to the current government. And the current government is actually going down at the moment. It has very heavy accusation, but at the moment, standing right now, the opposition leader of the Democratic Party is someone that actually had very important roles before, and he has been proved. So maybe the fact that he's not winning is because he has been proven. People, we knew people that haven't been proved before. So let's see what the future holds. Yeah.
Thank you to all of you, and especially to Ms. Rudina Hajdari for this opportunity to talk. I think that we will continue with discussions on the next room in the quite different atmosphere. Some of people who like it to ask something like Neven Cvjetić, and I did not tolerate that, because he has to work something between to join us on the cocktail. I will inform him what is behind the whole story. Thank you so much, and see you there. Neven.
Secretary